multiplication, normal division, floor division, modulus, and power. Also, we tackled on binary and unary operation, where we learned that a binary operation is where we have got it is where we have got two uh, expressions, but in unary, it is where we have only a single one. After that, we learned about that Python has got a limit, and we learned that Python can only handle up to power 10,000, up to power 1,000. When you feed Python with power 10,000 and above, it will automatically throw an error, and that type of an error is known as an overflow error. Then we tackle some different examples using normal division and floor division. After that, we tackled on order of precedence and associativity. And as you are taught, this is where now where we use the operation either PEDMAS or PEMDAS. We learned that Python follows order of precedence and associativity. And we gave out an example. For example, in the given example, you have been given that 2 plus 3 multiplied by 4 power 2. The one which comes with higher precedence is power. So when we will be tackling out this expression, we will start with the power. Then after that, we learned about comments, and we learned that in Python programming, comments are used by a programmer to show the meaning of a code. For example, a programmer wants to show what he or she is doing. He or she will use a comment, and a comment in Python programming, we normally denote a comment by using an hashtag. Then we learned about errors and different examples of error, such as syntax error. And we say syntax error are error that results from a program. When a programmer has misused a language, it results to a syntax error. For example, when you start with a value, error, because Python program expects you first to start to assign a value to a variable. But when you start with then you assign it to a variable, it will throw an error. So syntax error normally results. Then the other one is runtime error. And this is where now the programmer has written everything correct. Python a program such as x is equals to p plus 2, and you have not defined p. Yeah. For example, we gave out an example there where we add now the formula of calculating degrees centigrade. So the first thing we said that we have to establish some variable. So that means that is the first step. Then the second step, where we say that we have to define the relationship between F and C. So that is the second step. Then the third one is to prompt user for degree Fahrenheit. Then the last one is to report the results. We see there are 4 steps. So those 4 steps in Python programming is what we call algorithm. So the last week chapter, it was just as short as you have seen. Now, after that, chapter 3, I will introduce chapter 4. This chapter 4 will talk about conditional execution. What is this conditional execution? In this conditional execution in chapter 4, we will mainly deal with those signs of equality or inequality. So the first thing which we'll start with is Boolean expression. And we'll start by defining what is a Boolean expression. A Boolean expression sometimes is called a predicate and may have only 1 or 2 possible values. So what you need to know is that a Boolean expression, it is sometimes referred to as predicate, and it only have 1 or 2 possible values. And this 1 or 2 possible values, it just tries to answer a false or true statement. So when you take a Boolean expression into account, you will expect only a false or a true statement. So we will cover some of the expression that we will be passing time and again in this Boolean expression. The first one is equal sign. You need to know how equal sign is normally administered under Boolean expression. So when you want to show 2 different variables or 2 different things are equal in Python programming, we normally use double equal sign. So for example, in this first case, I want to show x is equals to y. So when I will be writing, I will write x, then that double equal sign, y. That means that x is equals to y. The second thing is when I want to show that x is less than y, I will use just the normal less than sign that we normally use in mathematics. The third one, it shows that x is less than or is equals to y. So that one, it shows x is less than or is equals to y. The fourth one, it shows x is greater than y. X is greater than y. Then the fifth one, I think it was a typo error. It was supposed to be x is greater than or is equals to y. It is not supposed to be written as x is less than or is equals to y. It was supposed to be written as x is greater than. So you start with a greater than sign, then is equals to y. That means x is greater than or is equals to y. Then that last bit, that means x is not equal to y. And not equal to is shown in Python by an exclamation mark and an equal sign. So when you see an exclamation mark and an equal sign, that means not equal to. As I have told you earlier, Python program tries to answer true or false statement. So when you have been given 10 is less than 20. So 10 is less than 20. Is it true or false? We get that it is true. In real case, 10 is less than 20. The second case is when you have been given 10 is greater than or is equals to 20. So in real case, 10 is not greater than or is equals to 20. So we'll expect Python to give a false response. Then the other one is x is less than 100. So what does it mean? So when you give, when the value of x is in between 0 to 99, it will give a true statement. But if now, the value of x is either 100 or more than 100, it will give a false statement. In the second case, you see a statement has been written, x is not equal to y. So this statement will be true if the value of x will give a false response. Examples. Now you have been given here a variable x assigned to 20, then a variable y assigned to 35. So, and then you have been given now a Boolean expression which says x is equals to y. Logically, you see x is not equal to y because x is 20 and y is 35. So when you will run this cell, you will expect it to give an output of false. Then in the second statement, you see here it has been written x is not equal to y. Logically, you see x is 20 and y is 35. So this means x is not equal to y. So when you will run this cell, it will give a true output. Then in the other one, you see it has been written, and equality has been written as x is less than y. And you see x is 20 and y is 35. 20 is less than 35. So this means when you will run this cell, it will give a true output since x is less than y. When you run this, it will give a true output. Then in the other example, it has been written that x is less than or is equals to y. Now, in this inequality, it will check for two conditions. If it is less than or is equals to y, and you see x is 20 and y is 35. That means x is less than 35, but it is not equal to 35. So because it has met one condition, it will give a true output. So when I run, you see it will give me true. But in contrary, when I want now to check if x is greater than or is equals to y, you see x is 20 and y is 35. And I want to check for two conditions, and this two condition is greater or equal to. But you see now x is less than. So it fails the first test. When I try to go for the second test to check if it is equal to, x is not equal to y. It also fails the second test. So when I run, it will give me a false statement. The other example is now how to assign a variable, a Boolean variables. So I have a variable a and b. In this variable a, I have assigned it true, and variable b, I have assigned it false. Now, in the first case, I want to print variable a and b. So in this first case, when I will print variable a and b, it will give me that a is equals to true and b is equals to false. Now, after I've printed, I want now to reassign a. I want to reassign a. At first, a was true, but now I want to reassign a to be false. So when I will reassign a to be false, and I print the value of a and b, in the second case now, because I have reassigned a now when I will print, it will become false, and b also it will remain to be false. In our first case, a was true, but after I reassigned a with false, in the second case, a will be now false because you see I've reassigned it, and b will just remain to be false. Now, in the third case, I want now to reassign b to true. You saw at first b was false. So when I reassigned b to true, and I print the output, it will give me now the value of a to be false and the value of b to be true. This is contrary to our first case where the value of b was false. Boolean expressions. So we need to know what is a Boolean expression. It is an expression comparing numeric expression of equality or inequality. So a Boolean expression is an expression comparing numeric expression for equality or inequality. For example, The relational operators are binary operators and are all left associative. They all have a lower precedence than any other arithmetic operators. So for example, when you see this expression here, it is an example of a Boolean expression. X plus 2 is less than y divided by 10. So when writing a Boolean expression in Python programming, you can decide to include a parenthesis or in other cases, you can exclude them. So it will just mean the same thing. So x plus 2 is less than y over 10. With or without a parenthesis, it is an example of Boolean expression. Now, the first thing that we will cover in Boolean expression, we will start with the simple if statement. We'll start with the simple if statement. And in this simple if statement, that means that we are going to give now our program condition. And we will use just an example which we have been using since the start of this course. When you can recall from chapter 2, we make a certain program which it can enable the user to divide two numbers. And when you divide a number by 0, it will throw an error. But now in this juncture, it won't throw an error. Why will it not throw an error when we have 0? It will not throw an error because now we will cater for that error by using an if statement. Now, you see here, now I'm starting to make this program. And in my program, it will have dividend and a divisor. This is where now I will have dividend divided by a divisor. So I will say dividend comma divisor is equals to even. And I have been telling you time and again, when you use eval function, this means your program is going to accept either an integer or a float number. So then input, this means I'm prompting the user to give my program certain values. And then I say, please enter two numbers to divide. Now, the second thing now is where I introduce if statement. That is a condition. When you see if, while, else statement in Python programming, that is what we call condition. So this part here, if divisor is not equal to 0. You see, I've written if divisor is not equal to 0. That is a condition. The same way, maybe you can tell your children, if you will not do the homework, that is a condition. You are giving out a condition. What will you do? I will punish you. So that is the same thing in Python programming. You start by giving it a condition which you expect your program to follow. You say if divisor is not equal to 0, that is a condition. And a condition in Python programming must end with a full colon. Now you can say if divisor is not equal to 0. You can see if divisor is not equal to 0. A little bit. Thank you a lot. So I'm saying now if divisor is not equal to 0, that is a condition in Python programming. So what should now the program execute? So if divisor is not equal to 0, and I've told you it is a condition, and a condition in Python programming must end with a full colon, then it should be followed with a block. And a block now is what you are expecting the program to execute. If it is not equal to 0, you are telling your program print dividend divided by divisor is equals to dividend divided by a divisor. So you are telling now your program to divide, to take dividend divided by a divisor if the divisor is not equal to 0. So in this case, if you will enter the divisor to be 0, it will not throw the error. What the program will just do, it won't give you the output. It will give you the output. For example, when I run it and I give it 32, comma 4, when I press enter, you see now the program will compute for me 32 divided by 4, and it will give me 8.0. But now when I enter a number which has got a 0, 32, then comma 0, and I press enter, now you see here, it doesn't give me the output. It will just write for me 32 and 0. But initially, we used to get an error. Why now in this juncture we are not getting an error? We are not getting an error because now that error has been taken by an if statement. An if statement. So when you use this if statement, we have defined it that if divisor is not equal to 0, the program will not do operation because you have entered your divisor to be 0. This is just a flowchart diagram of what we have done in that example. It is just a flowchart diagram of what we have done in that example. Now, in example 2, we want now to do the same thing. You saw in example 1, when it is 0, when we enter a divisor as 0, it just give us that it is 32 and 0. But we don't get any other message. But now in this second example, we want, for example, when we enter the divisor is 0, it writes for us the dividend and the divisor, and it tells us that the program is finished. How can you do that in Python programming? This is the way where you can do it. Now you see where I've set now my dividend and divisor is equals to eval function, where by using eval function, I'm allowing is not equal to 0, and I've told you a condition must end with a full colon. What should the program execute? Now what follows is the now my block, and you see after writing an if statement, what it follows it is intended. When you fail after an if condition, what the block to be executed must be intended. If you fail to intend it, Python program will throw for you an indentation error. That is why you see quotient is not aligned with if. So I will say quotient is equals to dividend divided by a divisor. Then the same thing for the print. The print, this first print is within the if statement. So it must be intended. So you see now I will instruct Python to print for me quotient. And this quotient, I got it after Python had done dividend divided by a divisor. Then now, after it has written for me that, I will instruct my program to print program finished. I will instruct my program to print program finished. And you see when it is printing this program finish, this second print is not intended. It is aligned with the first if. That means now this second print, it caters for everything in this program. Now, you see when I will fail to intend this quotient, for example, I make it to be aligned with if. When I will try to run this program, it will give me an indentation error. Why is it giving me an indentation error? You see now it has written for me that it expected an intended block. So when you write an if statement, uh, the line which follows, which is now the block, must be indented. So I have, for me to correct this, I have to indent this quotient. I have to indent this quotient that way. I have to indent that quotient that way, so that when I run, you see now it doesn't throw an indentation error. So it asks me to give it two numbers. When I give it 32 and 4, and then I press enter, you see it will write for me 32 divided by 4 is equals to 8. Then it will tell me that the program is finished. What if now I just write 32 and 0? When I write this 32 and 0, it won't give me an output, and also it won't throw an error. Why is it not throwing an error? It is not throwing an error because that error has been catered for by the if statement. Because that error has been catered for by the if statement. If divisor is not equal to 0, the program will not execute any operation. It will just give me if now divisor is equal to 0, the program will not execute any operation. But if it is not equal to 0, it will execute the operation and gives the output. The other thing is how now to write this if statement together with their blocks. There are two ways in if which you can write if statement together with their block. The first one is where now you start with the condition and then you indent the block. The second one is where you put the condition and the block on the same line. When we start with the first one, you see I've assigned a variable x to 10. Then I say if x is equal to 10, you see that is my condition. That is my condition. And as I've told you earlier, a condition must end with a full colon. So I'm saying if x is equals to 10, what should Python do? I say now print 10. And you see this print 10 is somehow intended. It is not aligned with if statement. If I will align it with if statement, it will throw an error. So you just look, if I align it that way, it will throw an error. And that error, we normally call it indentation error. So after if statement, the second line, which is normally the block, must be indented like this. So when you will indent it and then you run, you will see now it will give you 10. Because I've made this program in such a way, I've said if x is equals to 10, I say print 10. That is my block. That is my block. The second way which you can do it is now to write it on the same line. You see here I've written my variable x, I've assigned it to 10. Now in this second one, I've written if x is equals to 10, then that is my condition. It must end with a full colon. Now, instead of writing my block statement in a different line, I've written it just on the same line. What have I written? I've said print 10. So I've written both the condition and the block on the in the same line. And when I run, it will just execute the normal way as how I have done it above there. Now, the other thing which you need to note is that you need to differentiate between an equality operator and assignment operator. When you want in equality operator, we normally use double equal sign, but assignment operator, we just use a single equal sign. These are just some more examples of using if statements. You will go and practice on them. These are just some more examples. The second thing is how now to use if and else statement. We have only done the if statement, so we want to see how you can use if else statement. Now we will use the same example of dividend and advisor. Now you saw in the first example where we are just using if. For example, if we enter a divisor which is 0, Python wasn't throwing an error, but it was not giving an output. But here now, where we will use the else statement to give an output. And this output, it will be now division by 0 is not allowed. Now, in this one, we will say if divisor is not equal to 0. So if a programmer enters a divisor which is not equal to 0, for example, 1, 2, or 4, he will expect now Python to print the output. And what is the output? The output will be gotten by taking dividend divided by a divisor. But now, in the second case, we are taking care where now the programmer will enter a divisor to be 0. In the first case, we are not taking care where the programmer is entering a divisor which is 0, but here now we will take care of the incidence where now the programmer is entering the divisor which is 0. So now that is where now we use the else statement. So in this first one, we assume that if now the programmer has entered a divisor which is not 0, it will compute by getting the dividend 0. That it now the program will go and check the else statement. It will go and check the else statement. And after checking the else statement, it will tell you that division by 0 is not allowed. It will tell you division by 32 and the divisor which is 4, and I press enter. It will take 32 divided by 4 and I will get 8. But now in the second case, now my divisor, I want my divisor to be 0, 32 and 0. Now in this second case, it will tell you division by 0 is not allowed. So how will you be able now to give that prompt? The program will be able to give that prompt because right now it has used the else statement. You can only achieve that by using if else statement. This flowchart, it just shows the procedure of the example which I've illustrated above. The example which I've illustrated above, it is just shown in that flowchart. The other example is where I'm having two numbers and I want to get the difference. This two number is D1 and D2. So I've instructed this, I want to make my program where now, if in the D1 I have 1.11 minus 1.10, then in the D2 I have the same number. So then I make my program to print the output, and it will print the output of either both D1 and D2. Now, in the other line, that is where now I come with I want to check for equality or inequality. So I'll say if D1 is equals to D2, that is my condition 1. And I've told you condition in Python programming must end with a full colon. So if D1 is equals to D2, I'm making my program. If it will get D1 is equals to D2 to print same. But if now it gets it is different, and now if it is different, that one will be taken care by the else part. that one will be taken care by the else part. So I'll say else print different. So when it will get now these differences are the same, it will print same. But if it will get they are not the same, it will print different. So for example, now when I run this code, it tells me D1 is 0.01 and D2 is 0.01. This means they are the same. So it will print here same. But for example, if I could have put here values such as 2, so when I run, you see it tells me D1 is 1.09 and D2 is 0.01. So it will print for me different. So that is just another example of how you can use if else statement. Another part is a compound expression. And in this compound expression, what I will measure on is on nested conditionals. I want you to know how to use nested conditional. And what are these practical examples of nested conditional? Now, what I want you to note is that a nested condition is just come from a layman's language, a nest. A nest. A nest, when you say a nest is the house where a bird lives. It is somehow conjoined. So in nested conditional in Python programming, this is a situation where an if statement has been followed by another if statement, or an else statement has been followed by another else statement. So in this case, we want to make a nested program. And for example, you want to express 0 and it is less than 20. So that means it will this program it will take only values between 1 and 19. So you have to use a nested condition. And a nested condition, this means if will be followed by another if, or else will be followed by another else. Or now the other way where you can write an else condition, you can avoid if to be followed by another if and use now and use and. Now we are going to learn how to execute these nested conditionals. Now, maybe I want to make a program that will accept numbers 0 to 10. So I've told you value. You start by either value is equals to even, and by saying even, this program will accept an int or a float. Then input. This means you are prompting the user to enter some values in this program. So we are saying if value is greater than or equal to 0, if value is greater than or equal to 0, what that is now the first condition. If value is greater than or equal to 0, that is the first condition. And you see I've ended it by a full colon. Then you see it is being followed by another if. You see it is being followed by another if. And this another if, I'm saying if value is less than or is equals to 10. And this another if is intended from the first if. So you see an if statement is being followed by another if statement. That is what we call the nested conditional. Then you see the first one I've said, if value is greater than or is equals to 0. Now, the second one, I'm saying if value is less than or is equals to 10. That means now we use this nested if to accept values from 0 to 10. What should now the program print? It should print if you add a value in between 0 to 10. I'm instructing my program to print in range. And after it prints in range, I'm instructing now my program to exit the loop by saying print done. Now, when I run this program, you see when I enter a number such as 7, You see 7 is in between 0 to 10. 7 is in between 0 to 10. When I enter this 7 and I press enter, you see now the program is printing for me in range and it says done. But what if I will enter a number such as 11? 11 is not in between 0 to 10. 11 is not in between 0 to 10. So the program will not execute anything. The program will not execute anything. It will just exit the loop by saying done. You see, it will not execute anything. It will just execute, it will just exit the loop by saying done. There's the second way how you can do the same. You see here, now I'm using AND. In the first case, I used if twice, but here I'm just using AND. I just say if value is greater or is equals to 0 and value is less than or is equals to 10, then that is my condition. I end it by a full colon. Then what it follows is print in range. Then I want to exit the loop. I tell my program to print done. So it will just do the same thing as what has been done earlier. When I run this and I put a value such as 7, it will print for me in range because this 7, according to my program, is in between 0 to 10. But when I just run and I put 11, this 11 is outside the range which I've specified in my program. So the program will just exit. And how will it exit? The program will just exit the loop like that by printing done. Now, in this third example, I want to take care. I want to take care of anything which is in between the range and anything which is outside the range. I want to take care of anything which is in between the range and anything which is outside the range. So when you want to take care of anything in the range and outside the range, you will use the nested if condition plus now else. Now let us go and see. You see, I've started by saying value is equals to even. This means it will allow the user to enter either a float or an int. Now, the first condition, if condition, I'm saying if value is greater than or is equals to 0, then you see I've ended my condition with a full colon. Then you see the second if nested to the first if. I say now, if value is less than or is equals to 10, that is now the second one. The other thing which follows now these two nested if is my block, and the block in Python programming is what you intend now the program to execute after the nested if statements. So I'll say, for example, if I will enter values which is in between 0 to 10, I'll say now print is in range. But now, as I've told you earlier, I'm making a program which will take into consideration also value which is that are outside the range. And if you want to take into consideration values that are outside the range, you will use the else statement. So here, that is why I'm coming here and say else print value is too large. So when I enter anything greater than 10, it will print for me value is too large. What if I enter now value which is less than 0? I will take care of that by saying also else, by another else statement. But this else statement will be aligned with the first if. I'll say else print value is too small. That is when now I enter a value which is less than 1. Then for me to exit the loop, I will instruct my program to print done. So when I will run in this program and I enter 7, 7 is in range. So when I will press enter, it will print for me is in range. But now, what if I enter 11? 11 is not in range. It will print for me is too large. What if I enter now -2? -2 is smaller than 0. So when I will enter, it will print for me is too small. So this is a different case. We saw in our earlier cases, when you enter a number which is not in between 0 to 10, there was no operation that was taking place. But in this one, you see, in each and every number that I've entered, operation has been taking place. That or those operation has been taken care because I've used else statement. So there are some codes there which I've written. During your free time, you'll just pass through them. It explores more on if and else statement and the nested if and else statement. Yes, those are just self-explanatory. You'll just pass through them. What I want to pass through, before I call it a day, is now a simple program which you can use to grade students. It's a simple program which you can use to grade student. And this simple program which you can use to grade student is where now you use the if and elif statement. Is where you use the if and elif statement. For example, in this cell 45 and cell 46, have written two different ways of a program which a programmer can use to grade students. This is now your assignment, which I expect you to pass through those two codes because it will carry weight. And those two codes are the one that now I will examine in our second project, because I'm about now to give the second project, and it will be about now the grading of student following a certain order. For example, now in this code for cell 45, when I run, I've made this code in such a way when I enter any marks in between 0 to 100, it will give me the percentage and it gives me the grade and comment. For example, I enter 75 this way and I press enter. You see, it will tell me it is 75%, which is grade A minus and very good. Then when I run the same thing and I enter, for example, 90%, when I press enter, it will tell me 90%, grade A, excellent. So I've made those this program using two different ways. I've made this program using two different ways. For example, when I use the second way also, and I enter, for example, 65, and I press enter, you see it tells me 65% grade B, good. When still I enter, for example, 90%, and I press enter, it gives me 90% grade A, excellent. So what I'm expecting from you, go and revise those two codes. And those two codes is where now we use the if elif statement to make a simple program that can grade student marks. So when you'll be competent with that, that means you will be now in a position to make a simple program that can grade student marks. Up to that juncture, that is the end of our chapter 4. In our chapter 4, we have just learned about Boolean expression, the if statements, if else statement. Then I've introduced you now to if elif statement. In this if elif statement, they are statements that now practically will use them to grade student marks. And this is what will carry weight for our project 2. Up to this juncture, that is the end of our class today, unless you have got any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I need to get those projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those projects, I will send them by tomorrow. I'm going to compile them because in the project, I will want you people to make a simple program that
Which
can
projects are you
compute
talking
now
about, Levi? I'm sorry to intervene. Which projects are you talking about?
our project 2. Our project 2 now.
Have you given it to us?
No, I'll give it tomorrow. I'll prepare
Oh,
one
okay.
document.
About
in that,
the students' marks that you've said, right?
yeah, I will
Okay.
want you now to make a simple program that can compute student marks. I will give you the guidelines in those questions. And also I will expect you to make a simple program that can compute a quadratic equation, area of a triangle and area of a rectangle.
Okay.
Yes.
So by the way, project 1, is it done already?
Yeah, it was done. Even I shared with you people your marks.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The one of escaping, right?
Yeah, the one of escaping, loading the data, finding descriptive statistics.
Oh yeah. I remember. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we are good.
Yes. So next week we'll start chapter 5. Chapter 5 will be iteration. So iteration in Python programming, it just means repetitive. That is where we will learn how codes, when you want to handle repetitive codes in Python programming.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Levi. We appreciate it.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Wait.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the other class is starting at 3 a.m. in the next 1 hour and 6 minutes. So,
in the next 1 hour. Okay.
yes.
Okay, then we can do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I won't leave the meeting. So if you want to leave, you can leave and then you'll come back when it begins.
But you're going to stay there?
Yes, I will leave the meeting on. I won't leave the meeting. I won't stop the meeting. I won't end it. It will still be there.
Hey, Yvonne.
Hello, Ruth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
I joined late today. I've been a little bit busy.
No problem. I'll just send the recording